Did Doria Raglan take drugs while pregnant with Meghan Markle, disturbing the fake Duchess's physiological development? And did Meghan's ex-husband reveal that the then Suit star had a hysterectomy to close family members?
A new bombshell has just dropped, and, it's coming straight from inside Meghan Markle's own family. Samantha Markle is back, and this time she's taking aim at one of Meghan's most private topics, her pregnancies.
These are some of the highly controversial questions the brilliant Lady Colin Campbell put to Meghan's estranged sister, Samantha Markle, good friend of mine, this week on her brilliant YouTube channel. Now, we're going to analyse parts of this fascinating conversation with Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network Today. So let's kick off with this very in-depth discussion about potential drug use while pregnant by Doria. Watch.
I need to ask you about Doria's ingestion of drugs while she was pregnant with Meghan.
Okay. My brother was pretty forthcoming about this too. Several times in the house as teenagers, we would smell this really weird smell coming from downstairs that smelled like burning wire. And people suggested that that was crack, but I didn't know what crack was as a teenager. I thought somebody was burning leaves next door. And my brother said he smelled it a lot, and he said that he had seen her cooking it on the stove. So I had seen Doria smoke pot. That wasn't a big deal. I thought a lot of people in Southern California coming out of the 70s, part of me as a kid, just thought, well, I don't really agree with that, but whatever. That's her lifestyle and that's her choice. And there was a lot of wine drinking. She and her friends would run up the stairs and their eyes were red and they were always laughing. And her friends would say, "Hi, babe. Hey, babe." And I knew that they were kind of high. I mean, I don't, and again, Doria can't sue me about that because I'll test her hair sample and we'll see who's telling the truth. The bottom line is, as a teenager, my brother and I shouldn't have been subjected to that kind of behavior and also expected to keep quiet about it. It's like, no, if you want to do that, cool, but don't tell me I can't tell people that it happened. And since it happened when she was pregnant with Meghan, I can't help but believe that some of that affected maybe my sister's development in utero. You're not supposed to drink and smoke when you're pregnant. And if Doria doesn't like that I said that, too bad. I don't think that's healthy for a baby. So sadly, I think that may be a factor with some of what Dr. Carol Lieberman calls malignant narcissism. When a baby's brain is developing in utero, you don't want to ingest substances that affect that neuronal development, the cerebral development, because it can have short and long-term effects. So I believe there's something to it, and I don't think I'm wrong. I don't know for sure. I don't know exactly what substance caused that, but everybody knows that she likes marijuana. The other stuff, I don't know about that. Tom witnessed it. I smelled some weird things in the house coming from downstairs in the recreation room that smelled like burning wire. I can't pinpoint it, but whatever it was, you don't ingest substances when you are pregnant. You don't drink alcohol when you are pregnant.
From whispers of surrogacy to hidden health struggles, Samantha claims Meghan has been lying about her journey to motherhood. Is this just sibling spite? Or is there truth behind the smoke? Hit that subscribe button now, because honestly this expose could change everything we thought we knew about Meghan and Harry's royal fairy tale.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Because people who are on the fetal alcohol spectrum, as opposed to the syndrome, usually have little or no conscience and little or no empathy. And they're usually very self-centered and very hostile. And they have tremendous hatreds that come out of nowhere, and often focusing on parents, siblings, and partners. So
Brittany, it's interesting, isn't it? Do you think that potentially there is a connection to Meghan's very malignant narcissism today with her upbringing?
I mean, in terms of her like actual upbringing, yes. What they were speculating on, it's neither here nor there. We would never probably actually be able to know. But when it comes to, let's say, maybe she was overindulged as a child, and because she was sort of, even though she had older half siblings, she was sort of raised as an only child. I can see that developing into, let's say, some things later down the line. But in regards to their speculation, I don't particularly like going down that thread, but definitely how she was raised has an impact because that impacts all of us. So I would be curious. I think there's a lot we don't know about her childhood, and I think she likes to overemphasize her mom's role when it was really her father who she was spending more time with. So I do find that a bit fascinating. So, but we will never know. But does it impact her now? Of course, because it does impact all of us as well.
Yeah, it does. And look, I think what is very fair to me is that the Markle family should be allowed to fight back, Brittany, because Meghan trashed them from a great height on Oprah Winfrey and the Netflix series. Doria was dragged in to do the same thing. And it's like, hold on a moment, Doria. You weren't there for years. You allowed Thomas, your husband at the time, to raise Meghan solo for a long period of time. So if you're going to trash the Markles, I do think it's fair that there is at least some pushback from the other side.
I mean, you can engage in that. Sometimes, though, I don't think that always necessarily works because it's really going to come down to a he said, she said. Now, do we know? I think pretty much for sure that Doria wasn't super, let's say, active as a parent for critical years. Yes. But beyond that, it's just a he said, she said regarding the relationship. But I do think what Meghan has done is told Harry sort of a fabrication of her childhood and her early life. And that was part of the reason why she wasn't interested in Harry actually meeting her father. I mean, they didn't even meet him before they got engaged. Like the wedding was already, being planned by the time they were trying to arrange, let's say, a meeting right before the wedding. I think Meghan definitely did not want her father there to mess up the narrative that she had told Harry about her early life. I think that we could definitely infer her mom was completely willing to go along with the narrative, and that's why she was there.
Samantha Markle has accused Meghan of fabricating her pregnancy narrative, suggesting that the Duchess may have used a surrogate and hid the truth even from close family. In a controversial podcast interview, Samantha said, "She's not being honest. I think it's time the world knows what really went down."
Yeah, very good point. Then Lady Colin Campbell asked Samantha Markle about the hysterectomy rumour. Now, this has spawned really from Thomas Markle Jr., based on a conversation he claims to have with Trevor Engleson's Meghan's first husband, suggesting that she had previously had this operation, which would mean, of course, that she was unable to give birth to a child herself. Watch this.
I ask you, do you believe it's true?
I do believe now that my brother is telling the truth and that Trevor is, and reportedly Trevor said that she couldn't give him children. And this is according to my brother. I didn't get this from Trevor. And sources out there say that Trevor put this in an article or an interview. So I haven't seen that yet. I do believe because there are no delivery certificates. And I heard stories early on around the time Archie was allegedly in utero and being born. I heard stories that royal staffers were not allowed to see or touch her abdomen. And what really got me was the idea that a royal physician was not allowed to examine her womb. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but if I were pregnant with a royal child, you would want that child in the best care of the best medical practitioners that money could buy. And so for a royal doctor to examine your womb would be an honor. You'd feel safe, and absolutely, yes, you'd be flaunting that stomach everywhere. Like, here, look, put your hands on it, touch it. This, look, the baby moved. Look, oh my God, I need an ultrasound. Oh my God, whatever the case is, the fact that it was a mystery and hidden was kind of a red flag to me. I thought, why? Something's wrong here.
I mean, Brittany, it seems to me that the only person who can really clear this up outside of Meghan herself is Trevor Engelson, who until this point has kept a total dignified silence, despite the fact that Meghan treated him so appallingly, even sending back their engagement ring via the post. Is that going to change? Do you think there'll ever be a moment when Trevor is prompted to speak out?
I mean, probably not unless there's something that's, let's say, impacting his family now. I mean, he's moved on. I think he has put Meghan behind him. I think he probably is not interested in people bringing up this past relationship as he's clearly moved on. I believe he has 3 children now with his new wife. But when it comes to Meghan, I can't really speculate on what she allegedly told people or what Trevor allegedly told people. But I think at the time, because Meghan had just gotten this new big TV series and she finally had her big break, I don't think motherhood was probably something really on her mind at the time. And when it comes to royal children, obviously that's a huge part of securing your place in the line of succession. I don't really like the surrogacy conspiracies and those sorts of things. I think there's just sort of an explanation of Meghan just likes to play games with the media, wants to come out on top. And of course, the people who end up suffering the most, I think, are her own children in that effort. So I think in that respect, that hasn't played well for her overall. But I think Trevor will keep his silence. I think it's probably smart of him to do so, unless, again, he's prompted by something where he really feels like at this point he needs to say something. But I think he's put this relationship, Meghan's relationship with him, in his rearview mirror and just doesn't really care.
These claims come after years of speculation and viral clips showing Meghan's supposedly collapsing baby bump during public appearances. Social media exploded back in 2019 when Meghan's bump seemed to change shapes dramatically, fueling rumors that she used a surrogate for baby Archie.
Yeah, look, I'm just looking at those photos, Brittany, and I'm just so delighted for him
Mm-hmm.
because he must have been so devastated at the time with the way that he was treated, but actually he dodged a bullet. He has his dignity. He has a lovely family. He has a wife who seems to love him for who he is, and he's still working in the industry. And I think, oh my goodness, he dodged a bullet. Now, unlike you, Brittany, Samantha really was prepared to go there when it came to the surrogacy rumors in this interview. Watch.
She also clutched her belly at all times, which of course have ensured that nobody could touch her stomach or feel what was going on behind the hands that were shielding the belly. So if anybody had made a move to touch the belly, they would never have reached it because the hands were always there. So,
well, I mean, I think too, Getty Images are very reputable as a photographic agency. And so I was seeing all of these pictures of this alleged moon bump and pillows dropping underneath the skirt and hoses hanging out of the skirt, and heard about the Mayhew Clinic and saw pictures of her bending down allegedly at 8 months with her knees all the way to her chest in high heels. Now, I don't know. I watched obstetricians and gynecologists say, at 8 months, you can't bring your knees all the way to your chest, and certainly not in high heels. And I know when I was pregnant, you wouldn't bring your knees to your chest because, first of all, you'd be worried about hurting the baby and falling backwards. But so all of the pictures, my point is, out there were inconsistent with the idea of a real pregnancy. And I thought, what is she not contextually aware? She's trying to hide something. This is really sloppy pool. Like, you got to know that these are not things that pregnant women do. And when you're pregnant, there's not a pillow under your skirt. And there's live footage of her walking towards camera with her abdomen swaying left to right in a black and white checkered dress. I don't know about you, but I think muscles keep a baby intact.
And what Samantha is calling for now is for Meghan to produce proof, which she thinks would make this all go away. I'll come to you after this, Brittany, but let's just watch this.
Silence everybody and just produce a DNA sample or proof of delivery. Like, I mean, if you had those things, it would be very easy just to put them out there and say, this is what happened. You know, this is what it is. And so, you know, if they don't like it, why don't they just satisfy the curiosity and the controversy?
I mean, let's be clear about the fact you're dealing with two people who are very disturbed, both of whose mothers had issues that could have impacted upon their fetuses. And so we could actually be looking at two people who have been damaged in utero, and which would mean that we need to have to be aware of what has happened and why it has happened, and which in a funny sort of way would cut them some slack and give them some latitude, and would also bring this awful scenario to something of a halt, because at the moment everything is so destructive and unintelligible. But I mean, there's Harry and Meghan could easily have cleared up the mystery with those children, but they have elected not to, which in my view is also very damaging of the children's interests, but it's also damaging to the prestige of the royal family.
Critics pointed out inconsistencies, no official hospital photos, a highly secretive birth, and Harry's strange phrasing in public statements. Now, with Samantha stoking the fire, questions are being asked again. Was Meghan ever pregnant, or was the palace covering for a private arrangement?
It is. And shouldn't the royal family ask for this evidence, Brittany? I mean, it's not a bit like when Donald Trump was questioning the birth origin of Barack Obama and was just like, just clear it up. Release the birth certificate to prove that you're born in the United States, that you're born in Hawaii, and then you can be president. And it feels like what we're saying is, let us see the proof that Prince Archie and Lilibet are legally allowed to be in the line of succession. I mean, morally, I don't think they should be in the line of succession at all, given they're being raised in California and given they're currently being literally denied access to the king and the future king. That's a whole other story. That's a moral question. But a legal question is, we just need to see the proof that they are allowed to be in the line of succession. Because right now, they're pretty high up in the line of succession. That's my concern.
They are. And I think this is something that the government should definitely take up. I think it's sort of ridiculous that children being raised outside the country are that high up in the line of succession. You know, other countries have stipulations against that. Sweden is a great example. And I think it's something Britain should definitely adopt for the future. But when it comes to this whole question of what proof, I mean, I don't know what proof would satisfy everyone, because I'm sure there'll be people who still, you know, we had the moon landing and people still believe that didn't happen. So I'm not sure at this point what totally would satisfy people in terms of proof. And I think people would still believe the other way. But at the end of the day, regardless of where the truth lies, the ones who are suffering the most are their own children. I think Harry and Meghan, particularly Meghan, wanted to play games, didn't like the media, didn't like the palace, wanted to kind of have this subterfuge type thing and running to, you know, lying to the press and all these sorts of things. And at the end of the day, I think the children are the one who are suffering here. And I think some of the speculation is maybe a bit, quite frankly, silly, but I understand the seriousness behind it. And I figure as well, Harry and Meghan might just be like, well, this is silly and ridiculous. We don't even want to dignify this with a response. And I imagine that's where they're at. And I mean, people have called for a DNA test for Harry for many years too, when it comes to James Hewitt.
They've always refused that.
Yep.
I mean,
so I just don't see this going anywhere.
For me, I look at it, Brittany, and I think if they hadn't been so clearly misleading around the birth of Archie at the time, when they were within the palace, then maybe I could give them a pass. But nothing added up around the birth of Archie. None of it made sense. I was covering it at the time for The Sun in a very mainstream, non-conspiratorial way, and none of it added up. Like, why lie? It was just so truly, truly bizarre. And I think, to me, that's the problem. Once they were in California, it's a bit like, you know what? Fine. You're no longer royals. We don't have a right to know this information. But the way they acted in such a clandestine and odd manner, lying to courtiers, getting other courtiers to lie on their behalf about the birth of a baby, which actually has a long tradition in the royal family that there's a certain way of doing things. To me, oh my goodness, it doesn't add up. I do want to just show one other part of the interview, though, Brittany, because this was actually the part that touched me most. And it's the part that I sometimes wish Meghan would watch and listen to. And it's when Samantha loves her father, adores Thomas. You know, they speak every day. And she's just very blunt about the fact that he's not going to be around for much longer. And probably King Charles won't be either. And there are huge consequences to that.
Comment below. Do you believe Meghan gave birth herself, or is there something they're not telling us? Is Samantha Markle telling the truth, or pushing a personal agenda? Either way, this pregnancy bombshell has reignited one of the most controversial royal debates of the last decade. What's the truth behind Meghan's bump? Was it a natural pregnancy, or a carefully constructed illusion? Sound off in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next royal revelation they don't want you to hear.